How's everybody doing today? Welcome back to Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here. We're going to talk to John McRae today. He hasn't shown up yet, but that's okay. I look forward to him coming on. And so I figured I'd come on right away to just let everybody know that this is going on. Also to tease that later tonight, we'll be talking to Bill Sienkiewicz on a Word Balloon Live as well. So there's a good opportunity. And then tomorrow night, we're going to do an All Yeah podcast, both on the All Yeah podcast feed, but also here at Word Balloon Live. And that's going to be great. Tad Stones is going to join us. Tad is a fantastic animator. You know his work on Bob's Burgers, of course. He's been with the show for several seasons. He is the creator of Darkwing Duck. You remember that from Disney Adventures in the early 90s. Pretty cool stuff there. And he also did those animated Hellboy movies that came out with the original cast, Ron Perlman and the like. Those were made in around the same time as the Hellboy movie as tie-ins. That's when I first met Tad and was shocked to learn that he was listening to Word Balloon. This was very early on, 2006. And he's been a great friend to the program. He's a guy that I've always looked forward to seeing at San Diego. The fact that we don't have San Diego live in person this year, I am reaching out to a lot of my friends and setting some really fun stuff up. A week from tomorrow, next Friday, the 24th, we're going to have an online hangout. And the core of it is going to be the usual cast of Word Balloon regulars, the Benson sisters, Julie and Shauna Benson, and Tom King will be joining us as well. But we are reaching out to our extended friends, and you are going to see a lot of other great comic creators. We want to kind of recreate that after-hours atmosphere, the positive after-hours atmosphere. I know that there's a bad connotation right now with all the garbage that's going on with BarCon and all that stuff, unfortunately. So what we want to do is remind everyone of the positive things in terms of just the nice casual hang that usually does happen. And that's where friendships are formed, real friendships. And I can say that about the Benson sisters and a lot of the others that will be joining us next Friday. And again, I don't want to spoil. I mean, I'm happy to just say that it's going to be the Bensons and Tom. And I know we get a good audience just for that. But I'm looking forward to having these others join us as well. So while we're talking right now, I'm going to check my email, see if John sent anything. He has not. So, and I'm just going to send him a thing right now saying, is everything okay? And just make sure, let's see. And I'm just going to say, did I get the time wrong? I hope not. I did my the equations. So can you hear me Hulk typing? I'm doing that on my real typing keyboard suggested by Greg Rucka, something that he and also Matt Fraction told me about. They have, you can get a real kind of typewriter-esque keyboards for your computers if you want. I love them because I can't type on the flat keyboard pad. It hurts my hands. I get really, again, old age, man. I get arthritic doing it. So what I do is I got this, and seriously, it has been such a joy. But everyone says it sounds like the Hulk typing. Hulk just need, send email right now. So Wayne, hey, saw the Lower Decks pod. Hopeful that it will be a good show since the showrunner is from Rick and Morty. I agree, Wayne. I have a good feeling about that because Mike, and I'm forgetting Mike's last name, is from Rick and Morty. I think the trailer for Lower Decks looks great. Wayne is referencing an earlier podcast that we did, me and Franco and Mitch Halleck from Terrificon. So, it's terrific, man. I think it looks great. I think the trailer looks great. I'm very positive about Star Trek Lower Decks. Here's some other questions coming up. I am the terror that flaps in the night. I am the itch you cannot scratch. Yes, Darkwing Duck, indeed. That's going to be tomorrow night on Word Balloon Live. So that'll be fun. And yes, next week's show is going to be a lot of fun too. So yeah, there you go, man. Seriously, this keyboard is the best thing. You can get the tricked out one. I can't even remember the name of it, but if you search on Amazon for a typewriter keypad for computers, you'll be able to find it. There's one that's like $150. I'm like, all right, I don't need it that deluxe. But here, I'll even show you on camera what it looks like. It's really cool. Watch, I'll knock myself off of. So yeah, see, I mean, it's great. And you can see how deep the keys are. So it really does make for a real typing experience. And I mean, I'll tell you guys, 30 years ago, I kid you not, I was using, a manual typewriter at times, along with electric typewriters to write my Boxing Illustrated articles back in the day. So yeah, they're amazing. Seriously. So some nice positive things about John. He's amazing. He's always an absolute treat when he's at C2E2, and the work he's done for the Hero Initiative has been invaluable. I completely agree. I'm really looking forward to talking to John, and I just want to see right now, no response yet. So it's a bait and switch. He's gonna blow me off. No, that's all right. We're patient. I got nothing else to do this afternoon. Hey, League of Word Balloon listeners, let me take this opportunity to thank you as always for your great support. Truly, it means a lot. I have these freelance hours. I am sleeping crazy hours. Sometimes I wake up at 4 a.m, can't fall back asleep. So I do like 4 hours of work and then fall back asleep at 8 a.m. until like 10 or noon. It's the truth. So no problem, man. But yeah, we can take some time right now and ask, hang out and talk to any questions and everything. We're waiting for John McCrea to join us. I'm a massive fan of his runs on Hitman and the Demon, and a lot of his American work. I'm also always very curious about what he's doing for the various British publishers that he works with and his creator-owned stuff. He's got a Kickstarter where he's collected an anthology of a lot of his creator-owned stuff. So, looking forward to talking to him about all that and more. So anticipating the arrival of John McCrea. In the meantime, Wayne wants us to know that he loved the Old Guard, the Greg Rucka film that's now on Netflix, doing really well. We will be talking to Greg and doing a Word Balloon Live where we can get, your chance to ask Greg some questions about the movie. I thought it was excellent. I really did. I loved it. So hold on. I'm going to take a sip. Just water, kids, I promise you. So more questions from the Peanut Gallery. Will Axel's new AWA imprint be doing collected trades? I would imagine so, Ed. I'm not sure. I didn't ask him. I don't think there's anything special about Upshot in terms of them not doing it, or in the way that some of these other new publishers are, not about digital, or God, and right now I'm blanking on the new one now that also does the single issues and the trade all at once, and you can get it as a package, or you can get your choice of single issues or collected edition and stuff. So there you go. Captain Beanzio, what age group do you believe Lower Decks will be targeted towards? I think it's supposed to be at the very least PG-13. I'm curious about that as well, Captain. I'm not sure. There's, other than the fact that in the trailer we got a nude shot, and I mean everything was kind of blocked out and everything for the trailer. I'm not sure if they're going to do like Rick and Morty, where if you get the DVDs, they're uncensored, and then if you watch it on Cartoon Network, there are bleeps and stuff like that. I'm really not sure. But my guess is no lower than PG-13. And, that's always satisfying enough. I mean, I love the fact that Harley Quinn goes as far as it does in terms of the adult humor and language and stuff. But, it's not necessary. And on Sci-Fi, when they bleep stuff out, it was cool. Didn't bother me at all. So we'll see. We'll find out August 6th. Looking forward to that. So, yes, thank you very much, Jack. TKO Publishing is the publisher that offers all the different formats. Thank you, man. Exactly. Too many new companies, man. Not a bad thing. Don't get me wrong. I had to talk to somebody from TKO. So, isn't that weird? I'm getting a Skype call, but I'm gonna decline it. I've been getting a lot of weird, random Skype calls. So, that definitely wasn't John. I sent John a direct. Skype audio. Jesus, how about new? I don't know. They're not. I'll tell you what, guys. I will. I'm confused by this Skype. I want to make sure it's not. I don't think it is John. But I'll certainly make sure. Very weird. Totally live, kids. Hope everybody's having fun. Hope everybody's having a good Thursday. Hope tax day was as painless as possible. So, Shaw, was that you calling me just now? On Skype? It's okay if it was. No problem, man. Yeah, I'm in the middle of a broadcast. I can't talk to you right now, Shaw. I told you never call me at the office like that. Let's see, Wayne, what do you got to say right here? I don't think Lower Decks will reach as far as Harley Quinn in adult content. Yeah, I'm betting not, Wayne. I kind of agree with you. My feeling is that that they probably want the broadest audience possible, and it would probably be PG-13. But I guess we'll see on August. That's not you, Wayne. Shut up. That's very funny. Let's see. Ed, have I started Doom Patrol Season 2? I have not. But goddamn, I loved Season 1, and I am anxious to start it. There are so many premieres happening this summer right now on streaming, and obviously a lot of stuff was already planned, but I think with COVID, maybe they moved things around. I still got to see that Tom Hanks World War II movie on Apple TV. I really want to see that. I have Apple Plus. There's a lot of stuff I got to watch. And yeah, man, I mean, I'm embarrassed to even admit how far behind I am on various shows, including Netflix Marvel shows. How about that? It's a God's honest truth, guys. I want to savor that stuff. When I know that there's only so many seasons, I kind of occasionally will be like, I want to hold off and not watch it right away. And then if I have an interview with somebody that's tied to the show, then absolutely I catch up. I kind of like that sometimes with my comic book reading as well. So let's see. Chaos and Comics Lower Decks is somewhat of a sexual innuendo. Well, okay. It's somewhat of a sexual innuendo, Lower Decks. Yeah, I suppose so. I mean, there was a very innocent Next Generation episode that kind of did the same thing without the comedy and everything. It's Alan Moore on Skype. He wants to yell at Tom. I'm excited for Rorschach. Yeah, Rorschach. I don't think it's the comic book everyone is expecting. That's all I'm going to say, because I do, Tom's a bud. But I think people are going to be surprised. And I'll be very interested to see what the reaction is to Rorschach. I've seen very little, but I think it's going to be very interesting. So, Shaw, Doom Patrol was my favorite DC show. Still catching up with Stargirl. I am too. Jeff Johns and I were supposed to do more episode recaps. He got busy because Stargirl immediately got a season 2 approval. And I suspect that Jeff might be a little gun shy right now because of, and this is totally supposition on my part. Truly, guys, have not spoken to Jeff since we recorded the 3 recaps that we did and the one long conversation about 3 Jokers and Doomsday Clock and everything else. But Jeff's getting a lot of flack for, the Snyder Cut and backing Joss Whedon in his direction for Justice League. And I've seen other comments as well. There's a lot of Hollywood players that want things their way and aren't interested in other people's ideas. Sometimes that can make a very cool movie. Sometimes it's not a good experience for people on a cast and crew. I have no idea. I have no inside information on some of the controversy that is surrounding Jeff lately. All I can say is I believe that Jeff is sincere for wanting to make good product. I think his track record speaks positively towards that. And there's 2 sides to every story, but they aren't necessarily needed for public consumption. And sometimes maybe the best choice is not to comment. I don't really know. I hope that Jeff and I are able to talk soon and talk more about all this stuff. So can I see this? I can see it, Brad. Yeah, I can see your comment. Any plans on bringing John Hickman on the show? Yes, I've reached out to John. It has been a while since he's been on Word Balloon. I'm enjoying his X-Men run as well. John did a great in-depth interview with David Harper on the Off-Panel podcast that he does for his Sketched website. And John felt he kind of vented his spleen with David, and he was very sweet. I saw John at C2E2, and we spoke. And he's like, just give me a little more time. I just kind of want to space him out. John doesn't do a lot of interviews and stuff. And I am patient. And I know that John will come back because John is a good friend. And I'm sure that will be fine. Wayne, my interest is acting up because you're freezing. My internet is acting up because you're freezing. Oh, well, all I can tell you is it's smooth on my end as far as I can tell. Smooth as a Ken doll. We all know what that means. At the end of my talk with Axel, I disconnected and my audio got weird. And I'm not sure exactly what happened with that. So all I can say is, oh, well. There's John. Oh, he's on StreamYard waiting. Oh, maybe I sent him the wrong link, kids. Hold on. I apologize because I don't see him on standby. So yeah, maybe I screwed up and I sent him. Oh, I'm an idiot. So stupid. Hold on, guys. Um, tell you what, everybody, I am going to send John a different link. We're going to end this broadcast here, and I will, watch this space, and I will send out alerts on us reconvening. Because I apologize. I probably screwed up. Well, can I? Well, actually, here, maybe I can invite him. Yeah, you know something here. Okay, I'll keep going, guys, because I can talk. We can talk until John gets here. So be patient with me for a second as I tell John. Sorry, sent wrong link. You understand now why it's taken so long for the Word Balloon book to come out? This is how I type. Here's the correct one I'm saying. Oh, God. Seriously, Grandpa's VCR is blinking 12. What can I say? Okay, there we go. So I sent that to John, and hopefully within the next couple minutes, he will join us. So thank you, everybody, for being patient. Dante, very sweet. Love your podcast. I appreciate that greatly. Thank you. Brad missed the Axel conversation, and it was sent to notifications. That's all right, man. Well, that's the beauty of all this stuff. It's up there in the cloud. It's sitting on the Word Balloon YouTube channel, so I hope you'll check it out. Later today, I'm going to post a new conversation with Gail Simone that we recorded yesterday, and excuse me, not COVID, I promise. Happy to share that with you guys. And then, like I said earlier, we're going to get Bill Sienkiewicz on tonight if all is going as planned. He did confirm with me on Monday, and I just sent him the link, so hopefully that'll all work out. So there you go. Mike Conrad still uses Betamax. You know, in radio for a long time to air check Betamax, we were still using Betamax machines in the 90s to record air checks of audio because it is such a superior recording system. It's a shame that VHS beat out Betamax because it really was the superior format. Did you ever get the sound right for the Axel? No, Dante, I didn't, and I was just talking about that. I did not get the sound right. That was fine. It was just me wrapping up. Who cares? I mean, seriously, after Axel's gone, does anyone care to hear what my nonsense? All I was doing was promoting the conversations that we're having this week. So it's all good, you know? Yes. Okay. Yes. I coughed earlier and Brad says it's okay. I don't think we can catch COVID through Facebook. Yeah. Don't worry. I don't have COVID. I was really scared after C2E2 for several days afterwards because me and Tom were talking King and he's in DC and I'm Chicago. And we're both like, man, I'm really run down. I don't think I have the virus, but I am definitely not well. And it really did take like 4 days after C2E2 before I felt normal again. And I was really scared. And of course, Bachelor, I'm like, I didn't have a thermometer in the house to check myself or anything. So yeah, I was scared as hell. So Johnny, I just sent the email to him with the correct StreamYard link. So hopefully he'll be joining us in the next couple of minutes. For those of you who are like, hey, where the hell's John McRae? I didn't watch this idiot just blabbing and everything. I don't know if I've ever talked about my the art behind me, but that's a great print from Batman the Animated Series that Dan Davis created, and I love that. And then underneath, those are 2 genuine SpiderMan daily comic strips that I purchased from Alex Saviuk, who was the inker, and Stan Lee wrote them. Larry Lieber, Stan's brother, did the pencils. And Alex did the inks, and it was really amazing. And they're from the year 2000. They're 20 years old, and I love that. That I got those. It's amazing. I also have on my wall. Eventually, I'll show some of my other walls and like turn the camera around. But I've got like a great wall of a bunch of black and white ink commissions that I've gotten over the years. And Alex drew me a beautiful Hal Jordan Green Lantern that's on the opposite wall. So that's pretty cool. So there you go. Brad loved the comic book Spider-Man comic strip. Yeah, man. I mean, they really knew how to plan it and everything. So thank you, Wayne. Wayne appreciates my dialogue discords when I'm just blabbing. Hey, man, 30 years in Chicago radio. Believe me, I could fill 4 hours if I needed to, and often did, of just me talking to the audience and then really just talking to myself and telling stories. What else can I tell you guys? I've been watching. Well, I watched The Old Guard. I loved it. Can't recommend it enough. Please, if you haven't seen it yet, watch it. Terrific movie. And again, Greg and I will invite all of you to comment on the show with the Word Balloon Chat. Probably next week. I'm going to see what Greg's schedule is like. Hopefully, we'll schedule that. Again, if you're joining us mid conversation, we're waiting for John McRae. And in the meantime, promoting the fact that Friday I'll be talking to Tad Stones, the great animator who gave us the creation of Darkwing Duck. He's the creator and also has been working on Bob's Burgers for a long time. And he will be joining me and the All Yeah podcast people. And that's coming up tomorrow night. Now, I see John McRae, and if he's ready and gives me the okay, I will have him join us. Are you ready, Johnny? Johnny's nodding yes.
Sorry, John.
There we go. John, I'm so sorry. I appreciate you being patient with my technological problems here. Good to see you.
No. We were dealing with two people with technological problems. My technological problem is technology and my lack of understanding of it. So I think there was a certain amount of my fault at this end. So don't be apologizing. It's been one of those days, so it has. That's all.
It's all good, man. It's great to see you. As I said, we met years ago. Our mutual friend Sal Abenanti introduced us.
Sure.
In passing, literally, like at the Hyatt,
Gotcha.
for like 5 seconds. But he's like, "Hey, you got to get Jen and your show over by there." And I'm like, "Yeah, you're right, Sal."
That's a good Sal impression.
As I told you, he's the quintessential Chicagoan.
Yeah. He is. He's a riot, is Sal. That's for sure. I love him. I don't get to see enough of Sal, obviously.
Dude, I know. We're all hoping, that conventions will eventually come back. Plus, sure. I got an invite to do the DICE convention in Dublin. So I don't know if you do that con or not, but Owen McCauley has invited me. And this was obviously prior to the virus, but it's kind of a standing invitation. So yeah, when things normalize, I would love to see Ireland, man.
Sure. DICE is a great show. It's
cool.
A great show. I've done it a bunch of times. That's where I met Jerry Duggan for the first time.
Absolutely, man. That's fantastic. And I want to talk about Dead Rabbit, but let's
don't call it that. Don't call it that.
Oh, what is it correctly? Pardon me.
Dead Eyes.
Dead Eye. Pardon me.
Dead Eyes.
It is Dead Eyes. Excuse me. Yes.
Yeah. Sorry. The other name can't be mentioned due to lots of reasons that I can't even talk about.
I didn't realize that. That's okay, man. Well, again, our lawyers are nodding, so okay, that's fine. I understand. Dead Eyes it is. Absolutely.
Dead Eyes, please. Yes.
No, I want to get it right. That's fantastic, man. Well, people are lining up with questions, but in the meantime, I do want you to talk about your Kickstarter campaign, a great collection, your anthology for your original works.
Yeah, that's the general idea behind it. I had an idea when I was sitting I had a mate of mine round to my studio, and we were sitting chatting, having a cup of tea, and he said, you should do a book called The Mighty World of McCrea. That would be brilliant. In the UK, the Marvel reprints, where there was one that starred the Hulk, and it was called The Mighty World of Marvel. And everybody who's a UK Marvelite will understand the reference. It's not necessarily so obvious to Americans, but and the thing, as I thought more and more about it, I thought, well, obviously I would put a lot of my previous creator-owned work, and I didn't realize quite how much I had done until I started investigating it. I mean, I've worked in comics for 30 years, but I thought most of my work had really been work for hire for various things, Dread or SpiderMan or Batman or what have you.
Sure.
And then I started investigating it, and I realized that I had enough to fill up like 4 volumes of 200 pages each.
Wow.
So yeah, and in the UK, we used to have, well, we still do to a degree, but they're kind of crap versions of what they once were, the great glory of what they used to be. We used to have Christmas annuals. You would get an annual at Christmas, and it would be reprinting various, say it was a Marvel annual, it would be reprinting the Avengers, and it would be hardback and slightly oversized. And then but also within it, it would have puzzle pages and interviews and articles and pin-ups and things like that. Stuff that broke it up, prose stories as well, broke it up and made it slightly more interesting and just gave it an extra level. And so I decided that would be what I would do with this. I would make a lot of extra stuff like puzzle pages, prose stories. Jerry's doing an all new Dead Eyes. Got me doing it. A new Dead Eyes prose story, which I'm going to illustrate. If you remember the old sort of 50s and 60s magazines, pulp magazines, and the way they used to illustrate the prose stories with pictures that wrapped around the lettering. So going for that vibe with that. And so that's the idea. It's going to have old stuff spanning my 30-year career, which is horrifying to say. But it's also going to have some brand new content, like Jerry and I are doing a new IP called Rocket Station Charlie, and that's going to preview in this. And then it's going to have the new Dead Eye story, and there's going to be a couple of other little interesting bits and pieces, as well as puzzle pages and all this sort of business. So the big main story that will be in the first volume, this one that I'm kickstarting as we speak, is The Atheist, which was written by Phil Hester.
Yes,
who's a fabulous writer, great artist, but an even better writer, I think, than he is an artist, and that's saying something. And I think The Atheist was perhaps one of the best things he ever wrote, and I've got a real fondness for it. And so yeah, that's going into the first volume, the reprinting that. When I've got a brand new cover for that. Oh, and I must say that the design of the whole book, I decided that I might as well aim for the stars. So I asked my old buddy Ryan Hughes, who's worked on everything and designed everything for everyone. Asked him if he would design it, and I kind of gave him the pitch as I'm giving to you at the moment, John, and he went for it. So he's designing everything in it in conjunction with me. One of the things we just did was a Dead Eyes cut out face mask.
Wow.
So in the back of the old cereal boxes, you used to get the masks that you could cut out. Well, Absolutely. We've done one with Dead Eyes and designed it like an old retro cereal box mask with the dotted lines around it and everything. And Ryan, I sent off the elements to Ryan yesterday, and he fired them back a couple of hours later, and my jaw just dropped. It just looked so fantastic. I was just like, oh my God, this. So we've decided to make it into an extra tier. One of the tiers is going to have a print of this on really thick paper, so that if you were wanting to rob a bank, you could cut out this mask and stick it on and tie it on and whip out your. No, I don't condone this. Actually,
People are taking notes, John. Yes, indeed.
Yes, it's like, so that's how you do it. Yes.
Go on. What kind of plastic gel do I need? Absolutely, yes.
But anyway, so this is the sort of vibe I'm going for. This kind of it's a fun thing, and the book will be sent out in November. The Kickstarter runs through August. We print it in September, October, and then we post it out in November, and everybody gets it for Christmas. God willing. Great. With and it is the Christmas annual that I used to get under my tree at Christmas. So that's the premise of the Kickstarter, The Mighty World of McCrea.
That sounds great, John. And I do remember seeing in direct market stores imports of British annuals, Paul Kupperberg used to edit a lot of the DC annuals for the British market, and on his blog posted a lot of prose stories that
right.
everybody wrote, back then Grant Morrison and Alan Moore, and I mean all the UK regulars doing great short prose stories of these things. So no, I know what you mean. That's awesome.
Yeah. The prose story thing was directly influenced by an Alan Moore prose story that he did for the Captain Britain comic, and it was the backup character in the Captain Britain comic. I think it was the superheroes, I believe. But my mind is a mess. But he did a Night Raven story, and Night Raven was a British created character, really cool character. David Lloyd drew it usually.
Wow.
But Alan Moore wrote the prose story for it, and I think it was illustrated by Alan Davis, this prose story, and it was fantastic. It just looked so great, and I was just desperate to sort of emulate that as much as I possibly could. But so yeah, that's and Paul Kupperberg is an interesting guy, isn't he? I follow him on Facebook, and he's always got an interesting story to tell. That's for sure.
I agree, and he's an old friend, and I've since I started doing video, I've been doing audio for 15 years, and for the podcast, and he didn't have a headset, and his room. Like, you're doing great, man. If I don't even know if you have any sort of microphone or if it's just you talking to your laptop, but your room is perfect.
It's not even my laptop. It's my phone.
Well, that's great because it sounds great.
There you go. It's a shit old phone too. So.
But I felt bad. So for his birthday, I bought him a headset, and I'm like, okay, now we could properly do video and audio. Yeah. You'll sound good when you're on and everything. So,
yes.
Oh, hey, a good question from Brad Gibson. What are you drawing right now here on the stream?
Well, on the stream, I'm doing a cover. Well, I'm sort of laying out a cover for my friend is doing a new IDW book called Scaranthood, and it's going to be released. I think Declan Shavley, it's Nick Roach. Sorry, I forgot to say his name. Nick Roach is doing this book called Scaranthood. It's just been. He just mentioned it recently as it's going to start. Declan Shavley's doing the first cover. I'm doing the cover for the second one. So yeah, I'm just roughing out the design. I did him a design, and I sent it to him, and he really liked it. And I started to ink it this afternoon, and it was a disaster, and I had to scrap the whole bloody thing and start again because it just didn't work the way I had intended it to work. And days are like that sometimes. So.
Sure.
But yeah, that's what I'm working on now, trying to figure out how the hell to make this cover work.
I hear you, man. So, that's awesome. Yeah. I watched your interview on the 2000 AD podcast, and I thought that was terrific. And I am interested in as we're gathering questions, I'm interested in some earlier days of yours, and that your association with Garth Ennis going back to was it school that you guys met, or the comic store? Where did you guys first meet?
Well, he was in my brother's year in school, my younger brother, and Jasper. He was in the same year as him, and he knew that I was into comics, and I knew he was into comics. He was more into war comics. You'll be surprised to hear, and I was into superhero comics. But then I opened a comic shop in Belfast, and he would come in and buy his comics from me. And at that point, I had started getting little bits of work for British Marvel and 2000 AD, and he pitched an idea to me for a comic called Crisis. And we, everybody knew I was breaking into comics, so anybody who had any idea of what writing for comics was always saying those words, I've got an idea for a story. So I would just be like, yeah, okay, fair enough. But Garth really did have an idea for a story, and he pitched it to them. And the next thing we knew, we were being flown over to London to kind of sell it to them completely. So yeah, that's sort of how I met Garth, really, through the comic shop. I mean, I also met Paul Holden, who has just done a graphic novel with Garth. Paul used to be a regular in my shop as well, and Will Simpson, who's the Game of Thrones artist now, as well. But he also was a comic guy way back. too. So yeah, I mean, our shop for the tiny little shoebox it was, we had a number of sort of comic people come out of it, as it were, including myself, I suppose. Yeah, so it's an interesting one. I guess that probably is true of most comic shops because, let's face it, that's where the fans congregate, and so often the fans become the creators, don't they?
It's the importance of community, which I think you're right. It's always been a hallmark
Sure.
of this stuff. God, even going back to the Silver Age, and you hear that Len Wein and Marv Wolfman and a lot of those guys as kids were all comic fans in New York and taking the tours of DC, and then became the next generation of writers and everything. Yeah. So no, I'm with you on all that.
I would read about that in the Marvel comics. I would read about people getting to go on the tours of the bullpen and be so consumed with utter jealousy at that idea, because of course the bullpen was this mythical place, wasn't it? The way Stan and Jack, and well, mainly Stan, really created it as this sort of, and they got Marie Severin to draw those great sort of aerial views down into the bullpen with all the stuff happening and people at their desks working and shit going on at the water cooler and things like that. And you would look at those and go, oh, I want to be there, and then you would read that they actually did tours, and it was like, oh my God, why was I in Belfast? What a shit stroke of luck.
Now, compare that sense of community that the publishers would do. Stan was great at that, but like 2000 AD would reach out to fans in its own way and everything. But yeah, tell me, contrast it for me.
Yeah, British comics did do that very well, actually. Because we had a strong letters page. There was always a letters page in the comics, but they did more than that. They did things like readers' artwork. Readers would send in their artwork. They still do it in comics to this day. The readers send in their artwork and they would print it in the comics. And I had a number of my early scribblings printed. I had two pictures in 2000 AD, which were both extremely embarrassing. And every so often somebody digs them both up and sticks them on my Twitter timeline, and I just go, burn it all, destroy the internet now.
I get it.
Fucking hell. So, but I also had one printed in a humor comic, a British humor comic as well. And so, yeah, and that idea, and you would get like Tharg, who is the editor of 2000 AD, the Green Beetlejuicean. Tharg would send you galactic groats, which was his currency. So I got my envelope stuffed with galactic groats, and obviously went down to the comic. Well, I didn't have a comic shop, but went down to the newsagent to try and spend my galactic groats, and got thrown out in my ear.
That's hilarious. So they were coupons basically to you could apply to the books.
Actually, they did say that they were galactic groats, but they actually sent you a money order for a $5. I think
that's cool.
Yeah.
Oh my God!
Back then, a $5 was $5 was amazing. It was a lot of cash.
Well,
for a wee kid like me, it was.
And it probably you felt like a professional. If anything, it encouraged you to do more. So that's fantastic.
Absolutely. And then you took your money and you went and bought more 2000 AD comics with it anyway. So 2000 AD, they know what they're doing. Or they did. I don't know by now.
Well, I understand the feeling for old work, because I can look back in my 30 years of radio, and some people will like pull out old air checks, and I'm like, oh God, I really did not know what I was doing initially interviewing. I was in sports radio for a long time and got to interview a lot of the big athletes in Chicago, Jordan and all the Bulls and the Cubs and the Bears, all the professional teams. Yeah, it was fun.
I'm a real come down. Sorry about that.
Not at all, John. Are you kidding? No, this is a pleasure. Absolutely. Look, Zach says, I can't wait for Dead Eyes to return to the series. Such a fan. Great artwork and story. I love the humor to such dialogue and characters. Love Hitman movies and genre. So this comic was, and I guess this genre, so it's up his alley. Very cool.
Yeah, well, thank you, Zach. Appreciate that, man. It's yeah, Jerry's a great writer. I was a big admirer of his work before I met him, and when I knew he was going to the show in Dublin, I was like, right, I'm just going to butter Jerry up and see if we can work together. But it was fortunate that he was a fan of mine as well, so um, it just fell into place. Yeah, and Dead Eyes has struck a chord, I think, to a degree. And it's just a series of unfortunate events that has led to it being delayed in such a way.
Yeah.
Not a great deal we can do about it, but hopefully this Kickstarter, sorry to bang on about it, will
Not at all.
sort of be a sort of a stopgap at any rate. At least it'll have some new content of Dead Eyes in there. So thanks very much, Zach.
Absolutely. Yeah, man. And truly, Jerry's another friend of mine. And I remember when Dead Eyes was initially, coming out, and he was really excited to be working with you. And shared with me in a previous Word Balloon podcast the details he was able to. And no, hey, sure. John, I am happy to help you. We want people to get excited about the anthology and the campaign, man. And we want to get you the support that you deserve. I mean, everyone here, they're all huge fans, man. So Alex asks if any plans on new projects with Garth in the future.
Hey, Alex. Not as we speak, no. There's a certain point in your career where you go, I am so associated with Garth that I wanted to kind of just sort of spread my wings a little and try to fly on my own, like the baby bird I am, and sort of flutter out of my nest away from the protective cocoon or the protective wings of Garth, and see if I could make it on my own out there. And obviously, I just flew straight to another nest, to Jerry's nest, and just sort of settled in there. This analogy is weird. What am I doing here?
I still like it.
That was the idea was that I didn't just want to be, John, that guy who works with Garth McRae. I wanted to be John, whatever, Hitman and Dead Eyes and something else, McCrea, and just get away, because we have been so heavily associated. And I'm not complaining by any measure, because we're a good team, and we've done some great stuff together.
Yeah.
Some terrible stuff as well. Sorry about dicks and all that, but what can you do? But we've done some good stuff together, and some unfortunate stuff too. But that's the nature of the beast, I suppose. But yes, I just wanted to sort of see what was out in the big wide world, and do a little bit of experimenting with other writers and such like. So yes, that's it. So at the moment, no is the easy answer, Alex. Sorry about that.
Well, in addition to Hitman and stuff, I know you guys did. Now I'm blanking. Section 8 was kind of a sequel to Hitman, wasn't it, or was it to The Boys?
No. To Hitman, you're correct.
It was Hitman.
Yeah, they were the. Yeah, I mean, I can sort of see why you might get those two mixed up. But the Section 8 is the utterly shit superhero group who are just basically a bunch of lunatics. And they spend most of their time in a sewer, sort of peshed, or in a pub peshed, and and they're hilarious. They're a fantastic group. I think when people are deciding what are the greatest achievements of comics in general, overall, throughout the entire span of history, Dog Welder will probably be fairly high up in the certainly top 10 greatest achievements.
No question.
SpiderMan coming in at 11, and Dog Welder at 10, I would say. So yeah, it's actually, yeah. And it was a kind of follow up, in as much as we didn't want to bring Tommy back because he's dead,
right?
And we had already hinted at it. We'd done the follow up story, which was an old story from his past, and we felt that there was only so much. You can't overdo that and overplay it, or else it starts to feel stale. But there were plenty more stories about a bunch of lunatics in ill-fitting costumes vomiting in each other that could still to be told. So yes, so that happens.
Well,
that happens.
In the same sense, and it was a license
In-
thing that you worked on, and I'm glad that David is mentioning it. He loved your work on Mars Attacks. Absolutely, man. I love, and I bet you were a kid like that with the original trading cards as well. Did they go to the UK? Did you guys see those back in the day?
They didn't really know.
No.
I had never seen. Possibly they had been in the mainland. They'd been in England or in Scotland or Wales or something, but I wasn't aware of them ever making it over into Northern Ireland. So my first exposure to Mars Attacks, like so many, was through the Tim Burton movie.
Okay.
Which, I was a Tim Burton fan. I love Ed Wood's. It's a great movie. And Mars Attacks was crazy zany. Without the trading cards to sort of prepare you for it, it was kind of like being dropped into sort of a fever dream, really, for that age, I found. And so yes, I mean, I enjoyed the movie. And then it was later that I discovered that they were based on these trading cards. And I had no idea how infamous they were in the States, they'd been banned and all this sort of jazz. But they certainly appealed to me because, the sort of stuff I draw, and John, when Topps pitched it to me, and said that it was going to be John Layman, and I'd worked with John. He was my editor at Wildstorm for a very short while. So I've known John for ages, and he's a fabulous fella.
Love Johnny, absolutely.
When I knew I was going to get to work with John, and John is a huge Mars Attacks fan. He loves Mars Attacks. So I knew it was going to be fun. And I was flicking back through it recently, as I have been doing through a lot of my work, just for the Kickstarter. Mm-hmm. And I was surprised at the insane amount of detail I managed to put into that book. It made me sort of sweat to look at the pages and just think how much. I was just like, Jesus, I don't think I've got this sort of, I just don't think I've got it in me anymore to do that sort of level of work.
Oh, but, the detail.
I'm getting a bit. Yeah. I'm getting a bit old and creaky. So it's so when I look at that sort of level of detail, it really does sort of fill me full of horror.
Are you finding reasonable to satisfy your level of work shortcuts or the evolution of where your art's going? I mean, are you okay with it, or is it still a work in process in terms of?
It's always a work in progress.
Okay.
I mean, a lot of people comment on the fact that I kind of mix up my styles and I change my styles a lot. You get guys like John Byrne and George Perez and whatnot, and what you're going to get with those guys.
Yep.
It's always going to look like those guys.
Yeah.
Whereas me, because maybe I haven't got that level of ability, I'm always looking to sort of improve by maybe sort of thinking, well, maybe if I draw a bit more like this, maybe that'll help. So I do chop and change my art style quite a bit. I also get bored quite easily, and I don't like to sit and just do the same thing over and over and over again. And especially true of my commission work and things like that, where I like to mix it up a lot. I've sort of recently started doing this. I don't know if you've noticed any of my stuff on, if you do the Twitter or any of that crap.
Oh yeah, I follow it.
Yeah. Oh, actually, sorry. Well, I do this sort of more scribbly sort of style on my commissions. It's much looser, more scribbly, and it's just more of a free form thing. And I'm enjoying that at the moment. But I'm sure I'll get sick of it at some point and then try to move on to something else. It's just to keep me interested, I guess. I the thought of having to be the same artist for the rest of my life is kind of don't know. I mean, there's always challenges, of course, to drawing, even if you're drawing in the similar style. You know,
Sure.
there's a million different approaches to anything, but I do find that just being locked into one single style kind of not for me, I guess. You know, Dead Eyes is very different to Hitman, is very different to Dix, is very different to my Scooby Doo work, is very different to, you know, blah, blah, blah. So I do mix it up as much as possible. Yeah, so I mean, that will be only too apparent when if anybody out there buys the Kickstarter. I keep mentioning it. If anybody does buy that book, they'll see the variety of sort of approaches and styles. You know,
A couple people have joined us since we did initially mention the Kickstarter, The Mighty World of McCrea. Am I saying it
okay?
correctly?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank
good.
you.
And yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
And it's on Kickstarter. The campaign is up and running, right?
The campaign is in its soft launch at the moment. You can sign up to get notifications and then be alerted to when it actually officially launches, which will be in August.
Okay.
Yeah, so the date hasn't been completely pinned down yet, but I mean we're within a day or two of deciding that. So
excellent. No, John,
yeah.
honestly, like I said, people, yeah, absolutely. Please sign up, and this is terrific. A couple of people have asked about previous runs. Brad Gibson want to know about the Hulk. Had you worked on? And forgive me.
Yeah, the Hulk smash with Garth again.
Oh, that's right. Of course. Yes.
Yeah. That's an interesting one. That was after I think Hitman was coming to an end at that point, and Axel Alonso was the guy in charge at Marvel at that point, and Garth and I were pretty chummy with Axel, and he just said to me, what would you like to do? You and Garth like to do at Marvel, and of course, one of the things was SpiderMan, which we did get to, but the other was the Hulk. And Garth only ever really did do stories because I wanted to do them. He had zero interest really in doing a Spider-Man story or a Hulk story, but of course, you know, he levers in the war and the military element into it.
Sure.
But it was a great story. Again, he did a fine job. Originally, they had asked us whether I wanted Kevin Nolan to ink me, and you know, and Kevin did the covers at the end of it anyway.
Okay.
And I was just like, oh my God, Kevin Nolan ink me, that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
And Garth took me aside and said, do you want Kevin Nolan to ink you though, really? Because it'll end up looking like a Kevin Nolan comic and not really a John McCrea comic. And I was like, oh, that's a fair point. That's a fair point. And I had just been inked by Klaus Janson on a cover for if you know Marie Javins. She had self-published her own comic about her crazy upbringing, her life, and so I did the cover for her comic, and Klaus inked it and did a terrific job because he's Klaus Janson.
Sure.
And so Klaus was the guy who ended up doing it, and he did it looks fantastic. You know, he brings that quality to things. I mean, he's one of my favorite inkers, and I think one of the most amazing pencil and ink jobs I ever saw was a Tarzan comic that Buscema drew that Janson inked, and it was just basically there was no Tarzan in it at all. It just focused on a group of apes, and there was no dialogue in the entire comic. It was just these apes sort of and their life and a day in their life. And it was so beautiful. I mean, I looked at it and just went, how can they make this look so fabulous? And it's just a bunch of apes in the forest kicking around. And but you know, just an incredible bit of storytelling and just beautifully drawn artwork. And Klaus's inking was sublime on it. So yeah. So it was a real thrill to get him were inking me on that book, and it was just a real hoot to do that. And also there was another kind of amusing aside that came from that story as well. After it happened, after it came out, I got a call from Ang Lee's agent, not Ang Lee himself, but his Ang Lee's sort of before the Hulk movie was happening.
Sure.
And Ang had seen the Hulk comic and wanted to see more of my work. So so of course, you know, filled with utter, you know, my mind was exploding. And I sent my samples in and never heard another thing. But a couple of people pointed out that there was a couple of sequences in that movie that looked like they'd just been lifted directly from the comic.
Wow.
You know, and I sort of looked at it and went, yeah, I can see that. I can see that. And I mean, I know he had looked at the comic because he had gotten contact about it.
Sure.
But I guess it was cheaper just sort of cutting and pasting from the comic than actually employing me. Actually, I believe he employed Kevin Nolan at the end of it.
Son of
I believe he employed Kevin at the end of it. So, you know, I met Kevin for the first time at where was I? Chicago, was it? No, it wasn't Chicago. Baltimore
Okay.
Comic Con.
Okay.
Last year. I met Kevin at Baltimore. We were both working on the Hero booth. And I went over and broke his knuckles because he stole my job. It was just like, see, try drawing brilliantly now, motherfucker. As I smashed his knuckles. Sorry, Kevin's not going to be doing any more sketches today. I went over and said, big fan, Kevin, big fan. Love your work.
That's outstanding.
But internally.
Well, exactly. And also, not the first artist I've heard say when you work with a certain inker, the style on the paper absolutely changes. And sometimes that's interesting from a fan standpoint, but also, you know, no, you should know what you're getting into as a penciler when you are working with an inker. Yeah. So, no, I get it.
I mean, yeah, I've got no regrets. I mean, Jansen's did an amazing job, but a part of me does wonder what it would have looked like. I mean, I know what it would have looked like to a large degree. I know what the Hulk would have looked like because, you know, with those thin lips, the way Kevin does those thin lips and that mouth shape. And God knows I've tried to copy that and draw mouths like that. And I just don't know what he does that makes it work for him. And I fail so badly at it. But anyway, sorry, I've got a wee alarm going off my phone.
We couldn't hear it, but that's fine, buddy. It's all good.
No, I just wanted to get rid of it. That's why I was
sure.
poking the screen.
That's quite all right. No. That's fantastic. Great story. Seriously, John, this is outstanding. And our conversation is exceeding expectations. This is amazing. Truly. I'm having a blast talking to you and everything. So Wayne had asked earlier if there are characters that of the big two that you still want to crack at that you haven't had a chance yet.
Oh, certainly. You know, I am and always will be a Marvel zombie. There was nothing. My first comic was Avengers #8. And then shortly after that, I got a SpiderMan while it was still Steve Ditko drawing it. And Steve Ditko is my favorite comic artist of all time.
Sure.
Even now, I read that first run of Spider-Man, and I am just a kid again, and it's just transports me. And so yes, there are plenty of Marvel characters that I would still love to have a crack at. I'm a real B-lister guy, you know. I love the Z-list characters, you know, like White Tiger and, you know, Nova and, you know, shit like that.
That's fantastic.
I'd love to draw 3D Man because
I love 3D Man. Yes.
The torpedo, you know, just real bottom feeding characters, but they're awesome as well. You know?
Yeah.
I just love all those terrible ones, but they were my favorites. I think my two favorite Marvel comics were Marvel Team Up and Marvel 2-in-1 because you got those characters in there.
Yep.
You know, they would team up with the Thing or Spidey, and it was always great to see them, you know, in action. Marvel Premiere as well, of course, because you got a lot of those guys coming through as well.
Sure.
In that, so yeah, I mean, up until any Marvel character up until about 1982 or something like that, Marvel started to fade. Marvel started to fade for me at that point. I had discovered through well, just from through new comics had started to appear. Things like Love and Rockets and Cerebus and Mage,
Yes.
Concrete.
Yes.
All these great comics started percolating up, and and you had Sable as well. You had the old First comic line.
Absolutely.
Well.
Oh yes.
Badger. I love Badger as well.
Me too.
So all these characters started to show up, and they started to do things differently and tell different stories, and they were stories that I wanted to read. It seemed more than I wanted to read anymore. I still did read occasional Marvel stuff, but only very occasionally for the longest. Well, I think that's still the same. I don't read very much Marvel stuff these days.
Okay.
It's too convoluted. I can't figure out what's going on. It's just you have to have a degree in Marvelology to really sort of understand it. I think there's a university in Birmingham that's doing that degree at the moment. I like things that are more self-contained and within themselves. So a lot of I read a lot of Image books, I've got to say.
That's cool.
There's so many great writers and artists doing their own vision of things, and that's what it's all about, I think, these days. I mean, that's not to say I don't still love Marvel, and if Marvel rang me and said, "Hey, do you want to draw a White Tiger miniseries?" I'd be like, "Yeah, I'm in. Yeah, I'm in." I said yes to Yondu. And
exactly, and your Yondu was fantastic, man. That was a lot of fun.
It was, and it was. I really enjoyed it, and I understand why they picked me, because, of course, it was like the seedy underbelly of the Marvel sci-fi universe.
Yeah.
So I'm a 2000 AD artist, and I draw seedy really well. So it's a no-brainer. Any of the Z-list characters, from Marvel, please bring them on.
I can appreciate that, and I think much like this comment from Gore Vidal, not the real Gore Vidal, of course, but I suspect we're all around the same age, Sean. What's that?
Yes. Sorry, say that again.
I was saying that I suspect you and I are of the same age, because everything you mentioned about those great '80s comics were exciting me as well. I'm 55. I'll confess.
I'll be 54 in no time at all.
There you go, man. No, and I agree with you. With the current Image books have that same feeling that the '80s black and white period did. Sure. So I get it. Sure, I totally get it.
Yeah, anything goes. You get that vibe, don't you? Yeah. So but I think. Obviously, Image produce a lot of different comics and a lot of product, or at least they, did, I suppose. I mean, who the hell knows now? But
moving forward right now, absolutely.
Yeah, but I think the quality is superior. Certainly in the writing, for sure. I mean, I know I look at comics now, and I think that we have some superb writers doing some amazing stuff. I mean, and artists too. The quality of artists in comics is terrifying to me, an old hack, and it's all I can do to try and sort of desperately keep up with some of these unbelievably talented youngsters. Twitter is both fascinating and terrifying at the same time, because all you do is click on somebody's profile and you're presented with just a litany of unbelievable drawings, and you go, "What are you, 13 or something?" I go, "Fucking hell."
That's funny. Like that? Someone was just asking, John, how young you were when you broke in. How young were you when you broke in?
I think I was 21. Okay. I think I was 21. Garth was 19, which is ridiculous. I was 21. I mean, we didn't start working together until I was 22 because I broke in a year before Garth. I'd started doing stuff like I'd said. So I reckon I was 21. I think I ran the comic shop from 19. I opened the comic shop at age 19 after I'd dropped out of art college.
Okay.
And ran that for a couple of years and then started getting work with Marvel by that point. But I had been submitting stuff since I was about 17 or so. So I'm pretty solidly as well. I sent stuff every week into the companies, to various different companies. I was posting stuff off to them every week. I would send 4 pages. And I did that for 4 years before I got my first gig. So
4 pages being sample work or 4-page stories?
No, 4-page sample work for 4 years. I was sending 4 pages of sample work. One week I would draw SpiderMan and send it off to Marvel. Next week I'd draw Batman, send it to DC. Then I would draw Dread, send it to Fleetway to 2000 AD.
Yeah.
And then I would pick one of those independent comics we were talking about and send sample work into them. And there were so many near misses with those guys as well. Like, do you remember Bill Marks and Vortex comics?
Yes, I do. Absolutely.
Yeah. Bill, I loved Mr. X and all the other stuff that Bill published. He published some great books. And I sent in some, I don't know what the samples were. I sent to Bill. I can't remember which character I sent. I sent in and he wrote me this amazing letter back saying, I love your work and I'd love to get you to doing some stuff for Vortex before one of the big guys snaps you up. And then it didn't happen because, of course, it was black and white comics and nobody had any money.
Right.
And everybody was just staggering from one publishing sort of, will we make some money out of this comic? Oh, God, no, we haven't. Try to publish another comic and see if we make some money out of that. Yep. And then I sent work. I worked the first. I drew the Elementals.
Oh, that's great with Willingham. Sure.
Yeah. Well, no, I drew samples.
I see.
Trying to get work at first at Comico. Sorry.
Yes, it was Comico. That's right.
Yeah, and then I drew Mage and Grendel to try at first because these were all comics I loved. I was just a huge fan of anything like that. So, Matt Wagner's a genius.
I love Matt.
The Pander brothers work on that first arc of Grendel just does my head in. It's so good. The World of Ginger Fox has got to be one of my favorite graphic novels. If you remember The World of Ginger Fox, what a great book that was. What a great book. Yeah. I was deep into my comics.
You are killing me in the best way, man. That's fantastic. John J. Mayo says, loved your recent story in the recent Smash special with the great Rob Williams. Cool. Any chance for more collaborations with Rob?
I'd love to. I've known Rob for a wee while, and he's a super fella, and he's a great writer.
Indeed.
And I'm also a fan of the Spider anyway. The Spider was co-created by Jerry Siegel, shockingly. I did not know this until just recently. But,
me too.
And it was published in the 1950s originally, and 60s, and then reprinted in Vulcan magazine, which was a British mag in the 70s. And that's where I discovered him when I was picking up Vulcan. And it had Steel Claw and the Spider and Mytek the Mighty, all the characters that are in the Smash special. And so it was a real thrill to do that. So yeah, I mean, if Rob wants to write the Leopard of Lime Street next, which was a character from, was it the Hot? Oh God, I'm going to get it wrong now because it might have been the Hotspur. I think was the Leopard of Lime Street in the Hot. Can't remember. But it's basically the British version of Spider-Man, in as much as he was a young lad growing up in a tough part of town who got bitten by a radioactive leopard. And I am shitting you not. That is his origin. He got bitten by a radioactive leopard. So fuck you, Peter Parker. You only got bitten by a spider, you wimp. He got bitten by a radioactive goddamn leopard. Can you just imagine that dropping out of the ceiling to bite you? but
walking away from it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So
That's
yeah, the
outstanding.
Labrador Lamb Street is a cracking character, um, really great take on the British, a really very British look at superheroes, and I'd love to do him. And if Rob wants to write that, I'll draw that for sure. But yeah, the Spider was great fun, and I would love to do a bit more of the Spider as well. He's a villain, and the villains are the most fun, of course. They are, because they
John, honestly,
do
as an
villains.
American, it's been a pleasure discovering these British characters, but also
Mm,
truly anytime, and if this is a generalization, but it's always a positive one. I love seeing the American heroes through the prism of your perspective, all of your
sure.
across the ocean perspective, because it is
Yeah.
and just even mentioning the sea level characters in Marvel that you would love to do. It's like that's
Sure.
great because you guys see potential, and women when they get a chance to work on them as well, on these sea level characters that a lot of Americans take for granted. And it's like, no,
Sure.
you've got a White Tiger story that you wanna check
Yeah,
out. So no, I love hearing, and the Spider thing, as you mentioned. I got that 2000 AD press release as well, and I know they're
Mm.
collecting the Siegel SpiderMan stuff, and I really look forward to speaking to whoever's behind the project, because I think that's a facet of Jerry
That'll be
Siegel's career that a lot of us
yeah,
didn't know about.
yeah. The two guys who are running the that is it's Mike Richards. No, God, that's geez.
That's
Anyway,
Dark
forget
Horse.
it. Oliver Pickles and is the guy behind that. So yeah. You want to talk to him when that Spider anthology comes out, when that book comes out.
Yeah, I was all excited, and they're like, "All right, it's coming out in 2021." I'm like, "All right." Mental note. I'm sure
A little bit of
they'll give us
Put it in
they'll
the
give us a
diary.
blast when it happens and stuff. So that's
Sure.
hilarious.
Yeah, they're
So
working well in advance. You got to give them that. They're giving everybody a good run in. That's for sure. 2021. Wow.
well, that's all right. I'm glad they announced it, and again, that's something to look forward to for next year. As you said, everything is really, as far as releases go. I mean, because of COVID, everything's kind of in flux, and we all understand
Sure.
that. Have you, with that in mind, uh, looked at some of the alternatives to Diamond or even comic shops, like Marcos Martin and Ed Brubaker are doing Panel Syndicate, and Alex DeCampi also has a project over there. A different
Right.
distribution beyond traditional. Have you looked at it, or comics, even Comixology? Have you looked at any of that?
I've thought about it, but like I said, this is why I'm doing this Kickstarter. I mean, honestly, that's why I'm doing it because different models need to be explored. Is that Sal?
That is Sal.
Just drop.
I had
Hey,
to
Sal.
I had to drop it in because he's obviously watching us, and I was going to let him know that we're
Oh,
talking. So
bless
I'm
him.
glad he was aware of it. So
Yeah, well, that's cool.
go on.
Right, Sal.
And that's why you're doing the Kickstarter. Yes.
Yes. So yeah, that's why I'm doing the Kickstarter, really, because things are so in the air at the moment. I mean, I'm not a Marvel or DC A-list guy, so
Really?
I'm not going to. No, honestly, I'm not. And so I'm not going to be doing any of the books that are going to be coming out over the next while from Marvel or DC, because they have had to trim down their line to a core bunch of titles.
True.
And I'm just not the guy who's going to be working in any of those books. So and with the trouble that Jerry and I have had, which cannot be mentioned, on Dead Eyes, coupled with COVID, it's kind of given us this sort of I've just seen Sal's comment, so yes.
Oh yeah, it's all good,
Right
man.
back
No,
at
no.
you, Sal. Yeah. Yeah, coupled with COVID and the problem we had previously with Dead Eyes, it's kind of thrown a wrench. It's a big wrench in our, and so just to kind of keep things moving forward, I decided that this Kickstarter would be a good way to do that, and then gives me time to kind of explore, me and Jerry time to explore options. It's more. It's something I've wanted to do anyway, but this is the moment because I need that breathing space. Though, of course, saying that, I thought that this will give me the breathing space. But Kickstarter is a fuck ton of work.
I
Not
hear
to
you,
put
man.
too fine a point on it. It's an, and I'm enjoying it. It's interesting, but I would not be able to manage it if I hadn't got a good team working with me. I mean, I'd be lost. Like I said, I've got Ryan doing all the design work, and he's a gem. I've got my wife Rachel is doing all the financial stuff because, of course, she's the brains of the operation. I'm the looks, and she's the brains. God, I hope she doesn't ever hear that. And we've got a person called Kat Hemmings, who is my sort of social media Kickstarter consultant manager, really. And she's basically running the whole Kickstarter structure and campaign because she's really good at that. And without her, I'd be completely at sea. So, really, I'm doing very little, actually, when I think about it. Just sort of hoking around in the loft looking for artwork to throw into the book and then giving it to everybody else to go away with and do all the real hard work, I suppose. But but without a team, it just can't be done. Not for somebody of my capabilities. I'm sure there's some young person out there who just does their own Kickstarters all themselves, and I hate them. So,
No, it's been fascinating hearing all the creators, how they're handling Kickstarter, what they're doing, and everything. Here's a nice comment from Sal. I completely agree. You're one of the finest artists on the planet. And Dave Fowley says the same thing. You're on my A-list. And Dave was mentioning a commission that you had done for him of Misty Knight is still on his wall. Right. So,
well, bless you, David. Yes, I remember that drawing well. Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
There's another couple of characters. There's another couple of characters I'd love to do. The Daughters of the Dragon. Love the Daughters of the Dragon. They're awesome. Set in the 1970s.
You got it.
Get my flares on and big afros.
Yes, absolutely. You're right. John, if I were Lord God of Comics, you would be doing these things, but also have the time to pursuing your own work as well, because I understand and that there's that too, and I can appreciate and especially I mean, that's the thing. You've done great work at both companies, and it is I appreciate what you're saying in terms of, maybe you're not at the top of the list for them, but thankfully, you've obviously gathered a great audience and can do your own stuff. And I think isn't it interesting, John? Because I think, again, coming from our generation, when we were kids, the goal was to do DC and Marvel. But now the game has changed, hasn't it, in the last 20 years, where make your name at the big two and then be able to do your own thing and take the audience with you.
Well, and now we've moved to a different place. I believe now with COVID, it has changed the whole landscape of comics completely, where guys like me are not prepared for what is going to be the next stage, because it's the young kids doing web comics and self-publishing their own stuff and doing Kickstarters and what have you. They're the ones who are ready for this. They've got everything in place and they're getting, they're doing a web. I saw, obviously I've been looking on Kickstarter and researching what's going on. And there's a comic called Olaf or Olgaf or something like that. And it was printed on the web. It's a slightly saucy, beautifully drawn comic. It's got a very Mebius-y sort of European sort of style to it. And it was all published on the web, and now they're putting out as a book. Their Kickstarter video is one of the funniest videos I've ever seen, actually. Really brilliant, very high end, and makes my video look like a bag of shit. But there you go. So typical. So my video was embarrassing. I spent 2 days trying to record 2 minutes of audio or audio visual. Sure. And it's not like this where I'm chatting to you and it's easy. I can just sit and chat and spiel. I had to get a specific amount of information across in a specific 2-minute window. And I just couldn't remember my lines, and I was really dull and flat. And it was just, I always thought that I'd probably be okay as an actor. I'd probably, be able to do it. And I quickly realized, no chance, no chance. But anyway, it's this group of people who are placed to do well after COVID, it's them who are au fait with web publishing and Kickstarter and whatnot, who are ready to go, and we're scrambling to catch up now. I mean, you know, of course, your A-list guys like Ramita Senior and such, like, you know, they're set, they're fine, but for a lot of people, they're looking for the way forward, and these young folks are just there already and making, you know, because that Kickstarter was, I think they made 62 grand or something like that when I last looked at it, and I was like, shit, 62 grand. I'll be lucky to make about 15 grand. I mean, Jesus, if I make 15 grand, I'll be jumping around cheering. Quite frankly, if I make my bloody goal, I'll be over the moon. But these kids were on 62. I mean, I'm calling them kids. I'm such a condescending wanker. But
not at all, John. It's all right. We're the generation ahead of them. It's okay.
Yeah, but yeah, they're the ones who are ready for it, I guess. You know, and we're scrambling to catch up. So it's sort of flipped everything on its head, hasn't it? It's wild times.
Honestly, John, I've faced the same things in broadcasting and doing my podcast, both audio and video. And there was the great Olympian Jesse Owens used to always say, "Run your own race. Don't worry about what the guy in the next lane is doing. Just do what you can." And you know, John, truly, and I appreciate your humility. The reality is the fact that you have the talent that you do, and the fact that you are assembling a team around you that can facilitate these new platforms of putting out comics and stuff. I think you're in a great position. I understand what you're saying about the younger generation, but I do believe honestly that, you know, you're in you know, really. So.
Yeah, well, you've got to adapt fast. I mean,
yes.
You know, I after once it started happening, I was just looking at it going, oh crap, the industry is in very deep doo-doo here. You know, with Diamond closing up shop and the shops. I mean, but this is the big sort of kicker for me, is that I don't want comic shops to suffer. They're suffering, and I don't want them to suffer. And by doing Kickstarters, you're taking business away from them. But at the moment, what do you do? What do you do? I mean, obviously, I hope that if the Kickstarter is successful, then I can offer the book to shops as well.
Sure.
Down the line, but it's that idea of, you know, you're doing everything through the internet and you're cutting out the shops, and that worries me, because we do need comic shops. 100% it's necessary. Yeah, you know.
Well, and I do know too that I do know that other creators have made, through their Kickstarters, packages available for stores, and even in doing recent interviews, some of the actual viewers had recommended that maybe a group of regional stores could place an order together, and that way, from a shipping standpoint, it isn't crazy for you to, you know, create a package that's going to Chicago to, you know, 5 different stores or something like that, you know?
Yes, exactly. Yes, that's a really good idea, actually. That is a very good idea. I suppose that at this point, it's put the feelers out, I suppose, and see which shops are interested. I mean, I know a few stores, you know, in the States. I mean, most of the ones in the UK, I'll be getting in contact myself. But yeah, I mean, you've got to support your local comic shop, haven't you?
100%, man.
I mean,
well, and you know yourself, having owned one, so you know the importance of that. And
oh my God, it's like running it's like any retail. It's a nightmare. Retail is a bloody nightmare.
I hear you, man.
And but comic shops has a particular, that sale and no return is just, it's brutal. It's brutal.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't envy people. Back when I ran a comic shop, there was the previews catalog was not what it is now. It's this enormous beast of a thing now, the previews catalog.
Yes.
I don't know how anybody gets their brain around it at all.
I hear you.
It's tough. It's tough. I'm not jealous of any comic shop owner at all.
I feel the same way. People outside the hobby are like, "Oh, wouldn't you love to own a comic book store?" I'm like, "No." Like, again, knowing the reality. I mean, just the thin margin of profit, and you got to love it. And God bless them for loving it as they do and being the fans that they are and the ones that can make it work. And I've got my friends that are massive, store owners that have, even these tough times are surviving. So, Mike Conrad, if you look at Hitman, Mythic, and Deadeyes, and don't agree John McCrea is one of the best comic book artists in the biz, I don't know what to tell you. And that's a lovely praise, and I'm glad that Mike said that. That's wonderful.
Thank you, Mike. It's very much appreciated. Yeah, I know Mike. He's a long time follower, and he's a great guy. So thank you very much, Mike. I appreciate that. Thank you.
I'm really
embarrassed.
Oh, no. Are we okay for time, John? Because I don't want to overkeep you. If you, I mean, it's evening time. Okay, great.
Later on it's always whatever's comfortable.
No, that's terrific. So I mean, obviously, right now the main focus is what's going on with your Kickstarter and everything.
Sure.
And then as you say, eventually you and Jerry will be getting back to Deadeyes. So that's good to hear.
Sure.
Are there other projects beyond the Kickstarter that you're being planned, or?
Yes, the like I said earlier on, that the preview story that's going into Volume 1 of Mighty World of McCrea is a thing called Rocket Station Charlie that Jerry and I are doing.
Yes.
So yeah, and that's just a preview. We're only showing the first 8 or 10 pages of it.
Okay.
Because, quite frankly, I'll probably only have the first 8 or 10 pages done.
I understand.
And then we're going to use that we're not quite sure what we're doing with it after that, but it probably will be a Kickstarter to launch it.
Okay.
It's a single standalone story. It's not an ongoing book or anything like that. It's just a single done in one. But I feel more and more that those sorts of things are the way the industry should be going anyway. Maybe sort of emulating the European market a little bit more, with creators doing sort of 80-page books. Boom, that's your story, putting it out in hardback, and maybe the time of the single issues is sort of nearing its end. The balance is tricky. It's any sort of movement from one way of doing business to another way of doing business is always going to be rife with dangers and problems, and people are going to lose money and people are going to make money, and it's going to be a tough time. But I think that really the industry is going to have to figure out how to negotiate these new times, and little flimsy pamphlet things are not the way to make people want your book. Proper hardcover or volumes in bookstores and comic shops, and that's it, without all the nonsense of the floppies, I think is the way to go. And I mean, honestly, for me to say that it's tough, because I love the comics industry, and I grew up, all my life was devoted to American monthly books.
Yeah.
And the idea of that sort of not being a reality anymore, it makes me very sad. But at the same time, things change, everything moves, nothing remains the same. So you've got to be sort of serious about it. You've got to be honest about it. If something is sort of dying, then you've got to find another way. So I don't know. I mean, COVID again is making a lot of people sit back and reevaluate. So the industry is going to be very interesting. I mean, let's face it, every industry is going to be very interesting over the next while. I mean, it's not just comics, it's everything is trying to find a new normal, or what the hell it will be when we crawl out the other side of this. And, you know, if the comics industry survives, then that is going to be a wonderful thing. I certainly hope it does, because, you know, I love the comics industry too much to see it go down, but it's tough. It's tough. And, you know, the retailing aspect of it is the danger, isn't it, really? Because without comic shops, we lose such a big chunk of the market, but comic shops are in such a precarious position at the moment. So really, like anybody else is saying at the moment, go out and support your comic shop.
Indeed.
If you can't, you know, buy your pull list, send in your money, pay for your pull list, or ring up your shop and just order stuff and get them to post it to you, do curbside deliveries, just support.
Couldn't agree more. And right now, John, dropped out for a second. I'm sure his internet connection will correct itself. And yeah, everybody I know is in agreement with what John is saying. Everything is in a very precarious place in terms of where they are as far as trying to figure out how to do business. John is back, so I will add him back. No problem.
Sorry, I don't know what happened there.
No, I don't know what.
Yeah,
I don't know either, buddy. It's all good. I'm glad you're back. And no, I was just saying that we all agree in terms of COVID is making every retail business rethink how they're doing things. But even prior to COVID, comics had this same issue of what to do about the floppies. And
I mean, the comics was struggling, I guess, before, and now it and I guess anybody who was sort of sticking their head in the sand about that struggle, they can no longer do that.
Agreed.
That's done. We now know that, you know, shit has got to change and things have got to move up, and it's up to people much more intelligent and much more clued up about the workings of the industry to get together and sort that shit out than it is for me. I mean, Christ, I'm just a pencil pusher. So, you know.
Well, you're a creative. Absolutely, man. And this is the business side of the business. And yeah, I mean, you could tell DC is, I think, inching along that way with this Black Label line and the expanded pages and everything. So they're kind of moving towards that. I mean, honestly, it's something that in the 15 years I've been doing the podcast, I wondered why the floppy model, because I mean, even when it went up to $2, I was like an issue of the floppies. I'm like, okay. And I mean, my God, we're at $5 now for an issue. And it's like, it's insane, man. I mean, that's the thing, as a college kid, and I'm sure you felt the same way, we could walk into a store with $10 and get 10 comics.
I know.
And now that's $50. You know, and again, I'm speaking in American money and everything, but what is the price, John, for a floppy? I've been meaning to ask UK people.
Well, the last time I bought a floppy, and you know, it's been a while.
Sure.
I think it was £2.99, but of course sometimes they're $3.99.
Yes.
You know, and that's a lot of dough.
Yeah.
I remember when I was a kid and Marvel comics were 12p, and I was like, if Marvel comics go up any more than 12p, I'm going to have to quit comics. And then they jumped up to 15p within about, like, you know, a year, and I was like, I'm not quitting comics. Just kept buying, of course, but it's tough. I mean, that's a big chunk of change for what is probably going to be 5 minutes to read. 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And you buy, you know, and you spend $5 for 5 minutes. Or you buy a computer game, or you go to the flicks and you get, you know, hours of entertainment.
Yes.
Or you've got Netflix, which costs you $5 a month or whatever the fuck, I don't know, and you're competing with all that content just there at your fingertips. How can comics continue with the $5 floppy model is beyond me. It's an insane model, and only die-hard fans are keeping it alive, and God bless them. Thank God they are. And but we need to find a different way to, I guess. And,
Agreed. Zach was wondering if you'd ever want to draw Conan.
oh God, yes! I did a Conan cover recently for Marvel. Yeah, it's Savage Sword, but it was only a cover, and it was drawn by Alan Davis and inside, and written by, oh God, what's the name of the guy who originally wrote Conan?
Robert Howard.
No. The comics.
Excuse me, Roy Thomas.
Yeah, Roy Thomas. Roy Thomas's first Conan story
In decades.
Since way back. It was his first Conan story with Alan Davis drawing it, and I was doing the cover.
Wow.
I was totally shitting myself, and I really overthought it, and just, when you think this has got to be the best Conan drawing ever, and then it's not. I mean, it wasn't a bad Conan drawing, but it wasn't what I had wanted, and because the pressure was too great. I mean, those guys are, legends, and I was just like, oh my God, how can I be on the cover? That's ridiculous. So yeah, so I drew Conan, yes, and I would like to draw more Conan. He's a fantastic character. Yeah. So yeah, just the big treasury editions of Conan, the big Marvel treasury editions are just,
absolutely.
They sit in my studio just beside my computer, and every so often I'll pull them out and just read them, and oh God, amazing stuff.
That's outstanding, man. No, that's fantastic. My favorite Robert Howard character, and he's rarely gotten any treatment in comics, is that Sailor Costigan, who was like the merchant sailor going from country to country, and he was a boxer as well as being the seaman, and he would challenge different, it was all foreign intrigue, and he'd end up having to fight like the biggest champion of whatever country they were in port and everything. And it was, oh my God. And I'm a big boxing fan. In fact, Barry McGuigan, the great clone Cyclone, one of my favorite heroes of the 80s and stuff. Oh yeah. I follow him on Twitter. So I covered boxing for 20 years in print and in radio and a little bit of television in my broadcasting career. So yeah, I don't know if you're a boxing fan or not.
I've watched a bit of boxing, but I'm not a sports guy. I've got to say, I apologize.
Not at all.
But I was the ultimate nerd at school, and I hated the jocks because they beat me up and tore my comics up, and so I wasn't a sports guy at all.
No problem, John.
Did you ever see Barry McGuigan's TV show?
No.
He did a TV show for about 10 minutes in the UK. It was terrible. It was terrible. Oh, he had zero personality when in the studio chatting to people, and it was one of those, you could see the executives in the background going, well, he's really popular. He's a cheeky chappy, and we'll get him on. He'll host a chat show. Disaster, absolute disaster. Yeah.
They've done that in American television as well.
But fair play to Barry. I mean, it's good on him. I mean,
Absolutely.
It's always great. It's always great to see Northern Irish folks succeeding and doing well.
I'm with you, man.
Always happy to see it.
I loved and I don't know, is Daniel Day Lewis? Is he
Southern Irish? I believe.
Okay, Southern. Pardon me, because Barry trained him for that great '90s boxer movie that he made. And and truly, I thought Lewis, for an actor, took to it quite well and was very credible in his performance.
That's his thing, isn't it? That's his shtick anyway. Because Lewis is throwing himself into the role and becoming the role.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, I didn't see that movie. I don't know what it is, but I'm sure it was he was excellent in it.
It's amazing. It's a great Irish crime movie as well as a boxing story.
Okay.
It's called The Boxer, and Emily Watson was the love interest, and I believe Brian Cox was the father figure mobster boss.
Right, okay.
I mean, I'm a big fan of the General, the Brendan. Yeah, I mean, I am thrilled to discover European crime films and television series because
Okay.
I love a good procedural. And again,
Sure.
I appreciate the locales and the differences of the way police work happens.
Right.
So
Are you,
I'm any sort of police procedural from around the world. You
right.
got me at hello. So yeah.
Right. So are you into all the Nordic ones that
Yes,
are the big?
of course,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
In fact, even more as much the BBC adaptations of the Swedish novels and things like
Sure.
Laughing Policeman and things like that. Oh my
Sure.
God, I love that stuff. It's amazing. Oh yeah.
Fantastic.
So
Yeah,
there you
yeah.
go, man.
I do like them myself. Yes, absolutely. The bleaker, the better.
Indeed, absolutely, exactly. Yes, indeed. So greetings from the glens of Antrim, John.
Oh,
Hope
all
you're
right.
enjoying the
Hey.
great weather.
Well, yes. Over here, I'm in the mainland. I moved to Birmingham for my sins about 30 years ago. Obviously, my sins were many. I'm sorry, Birmingham. I'm only joking. And but the weather here today has been pretty decent. Yeah, we've had a nice day. It's not been bad. I was out in the garden doing a bit of gardening.
There you go. That's hilarious. Fantastic. John, honestly, I really appreciate this opportunity to talk to you and to get to know you better. And truly, you are welcome anytime back. And in fact, when we wrap up now, stay on the line as I wrap up the broadcast, because I'd like to talk to you about an online convention if you have time. That we'd love to have you be a part of it if you have the time, and it may coincide with the campaign again. So for people just joining us again, I'll let you mention the Kickstarter and the fact that it's coming, and that people should jump on the soft beginnings now and be aware when the campaign is active. So please.
Thank you, John. It's called The Mighty World of McCrea, and it's basically a 4-volume set, but we're just kickstarting the first volume, and it's reprinting a lot of my work, my creator-owned work over the past 30 years. But also there's a lot of new stuff in there, some new Dead Eyes stories, and there's also the idea of it is to be a Christmas annual, and I'm putting puzzle pages and articles. There's an article about my first comic shop in Northern Ireland in the first one, and it's ties to the Belfast punk scene of the time.
Awesome.
So it's just going to be 200 pages, jam-packed with really some great little stories and some fun, crazy content as well. And that's my pitch. There you go. And the soft launches at the moment, you can go on to Kickstarter and sign up to follow it, and then be notified when it goes live, and any notifications that come through, updates and things like that will be, you'll get those updates. So,
if you enjoyed Dead Eyes, a great new kind of bridging story that might suggest what's to come in the future for the collaborations with Jerry. And if you're a fan, or if you've never read The Atheist, the wonderful story that John did with Phil Hester, collected in this first volume as well. And I intend to have a soon conversation with Phil, and we'll talk about that.
Oh, brilliant. Phil's a great guy. Phil is one of the nicest guys in comics, obviously, in the world, probably. You know, just absolute star of a fella. Yeah, I love it when I get to hang out with Phil.
John, I've heard nothing but the same about you with our mutual comic book friends. So you're in the team picture as far as the nice guys in comics, and I can certainly attest to that based on this conversation. Genuine pleasure.
Another person fooled. Managed to pull the wool over another person's eye. Fantastic.
I am happy to be one of those people. That's quite all right. Hang out for me, and as I wrap things up, but truly, this has been a pleasure, and really,
it's been a pleasure chatting with you, John, and to everybody who's signed in and listened. Thanks very much. I really appreciate all your support over the years.
Absolutely, man, and you're welcome to come back. So please do. So John McRae, everybody, I'm going to talk to him for a moment off the air, but I will take this opportunity to thank you for watching Word Balloon Live. We're going to have a session with Bill Sienkiewicz. If all goes well, I'm going to have to check my emails when I'm done with this broadcast. Make sure that that's happening. If we are, it will be 7 o'clock Pacific time, 10 p.m. Eastern for American audiences. A little late for the overnight audiences, but that's why we'll be sitting up on YouTube and Kickstarter to watch at your convenience, and the audio will follow. John's audio will also follow in the days ahead. So as always, truly, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the conversation.